My 30th birthday began with the sweet smell of cake, but ended with a beautifully wrapped box from my husband. Inside, I found not a gift, but divorce papers and a betrayal so deep it was only the beginning. The scent of coffee and the faint, sweet promise of the birthday cake I'd baked for myself last night filled the air. It was my 30th birthday, a milestone, and I was determined to make it perfect. My husband, Mark, had been quiet all morning, a strange, distant quality in his eyes that I'd been trying to ignore. I chalked it up to stress from work. He'd been working late a lot lately, coming home smelling of a perfume that wasn't mine, but he always had a plausible explanation. A new client, a late meeting, a team dinner. I'd chosen to believe him because the alternative was unthinkable. We had been together for 10 years, married for 7. He was my rock, my best friend, the man I thought I would grow old and gray with. So I pushed my anxieties aside and focused on the evening ahead. I'd planned a romantic dinner, just the two of us. His favorite meal, a slow-cooked bolognese, was already simmering on the stove, filling our small home with the aroma of love and effort. A new dress, a deep emerald green silk that Mark loved, was hanging on the back of our bedroom door. He found me in the kitchen, tasting the sauce from a wooden spoon. He didn't kiss my cheek like he usually did. Instead, he stood there, hands in his pockets, with that same detached look. "Happy birthday," he said, his voice flat, devoid of any warmth. "Thank you, honey," I replied, forcing a bright smile. "Big plans tonight. Just you, me, and a bottle of the good Chianti." He didn't return the smile. "We need to talk," he said, and my blood ran cold. Those are the 4 worst words in the English language. "But first," he continued, pulling a beautifully wrapped box from behind his back, "this is for you." Relief washed over me in a dizzying wave. I was being silly, paranoid. Of course, he wasn't acting weird. He was just trying to surprise me. The box was stunning, wrapped in shimmering silver paper with a perfectly tied navy blue ribbon. It was heavy, substantial. My mind raced with possibilities. A designer watch? A piece of jewelry I'd been eyeing? "Oh, Mark, you shouldn't have," I gushed, taking the box from him. My fingers fumbled with the ribbon, my heart thumping with a mix of excitement and lingering unease. "Just open it," he said, his voice tight. I pulled off the ribbon and carefully tore the paper. Inside was a sleek, black, velvet box. My breath caught in my throat. It was definitely jewelry. I lifted the lid, my smile ready to burst forth, but it froze on my lips. There was no necklace, no bracelet, no glittering earrings nestled in the velvet. There was only a thick stack of folded papers, held together by a binder clip. I stared at it, confused. "What is this? A joke?" I looked up at him, searching his face for a hint of humor, for the punchline, but his expression was like stone. It was a cold, hard mask I didn't recognize. "Read it," he commanded softly. My hands trembled as I picked up the documents. The letterhead was from a law firm I'd never heard of. My eyes scanned the first line, and the words swam before me, refusing to make sense. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Dissolution of marriage. Divorce. The world tilted on its axis. The smell of the bolognese suddenly turned my stomach. "I don't understand," I whispered, the words feeling like sandpaper in my throat. "Mark, what is this?" "It's exactly what it looks like," he said, finally dropping the detached facade. His voice was cold, clinical. "I'm leaving you, Sarah." "Leaving me? Why?" The questions tumbled out, desperate and pathetic. "Is it something I did? We can fix it. We can go to counseling. Whatever it is, we can fix it." He let out a short, bitter laugh that cut me deeper than any insult could have. "There's no fixing this. It's over. I haven't loved you for a long time." Each word was a physical blow. I felt the air leave my lungs, my body swaying as if I'd been struck. "There's someone else, isn't there?" The question hung in the air, heavy and poisonous. I already knew the answer. The late nights, the strange perfume, the distance, it all clicked into place in one horrific, shattering moment. He didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. He just nodded, his jaw set. "Her name is Chloe, and she's pregnant." Pregnant. The word echoed in the sudden, deafening silence of the room. He wasn't just leaving me, he was leaving me to start a new family, a whole new life that had been growing in the shadows of our marriage. I sank onto a kitchen chair, the legal papers slipping from my numb fingers and scattering across the floor. He didn't move to help. He just watched me crumble, his face impassive. He grabbed his pre-packed gym bag from the hallway. I now realized it wasn't for the gym, and walked to the door. He didn't say goodbye. He didn't say he was sorry. He just opened the door and walked out of my life, the soft click of the lock sounding like a gunshot in the silence. I sat there for what felt like hours, surrounded by the ghosts of my perfect birthday. The simmering sauce, the beautiful dress, the divorce papers on my floor. My world had been reduced to rubble in the span of 5 minutes. Eventually, a sound cut through my daze, a ping from my phone on the counter. I ignored it. Then it pinged again and again. Annoyed, I numbly reached for it, expecting it to be a happy birthday text from a friend, a cruel irony I couldn't bear. But the name on the screen wasn't a friend. It was Mark's mom, my mother-in-law. My eyes blurred with tears as I opened the message. It wasn't a birthday wish. It was a single, terrifying line. "Sarah, whatever you do not sign those papers. He's not telling you the whole truth about Chloe." Carol's message glowed on the screen, a single lighthouse beam in a hurricane of pain. "Do not sign those papers. He's not telling you the whole truth about Chloe." My mind, which had been numbly replaying Mark's departure, suddenly whirred to life. Truth? What other truth could there possibly be? A pregnant mistress seemed like the entire horrifying truth. I fumbled to call her, my fingers shaking so badly I had to dial twice. She picked up on the first ring, her voice a choked whisper. "Carol? What do you mean? What truth?" I begged, my voice cracking. "Oh, Sarah, my dear girl, I'm so sorry," she sobbed into the phone. I can't talk now. He might hear me. He's a monster. What he's doing to you is monstrous." "Carol, please, you have to tell me," I pleaded, pacing the kitchen, stepping over the divorce papers like they were landmines. "Not on the phone," she insisted. "He gets so angry. Meet me tomorrow. The old diner off Route 9, 10 a.m., and Sarah." Her voice dropped to a conspiratorial hush. "Read that paperwork. Read every single word. Don't let him rush you." The line went dead. I spent the night in a state of suspended agony, a ghost in my own home. I couldn't cry anymore. I couldn't sleep. I just sat at the kitchen table, the half-eaten birthday cake mocking me from the counter. Carol's words echoed in my head. Read every single word. Around 3 a.m., fueled by a bitter cup of coffee, I gathered the papers from the floor and spread them out under the harsh kitchen light. I was no lawyer, but even I could see how ruthlessly one-sided it was. He was offering me a lump sum from our joint savings account, an amount that seemed generous at first glance, but would barely cover 6 months of living expenses in this city. But it was the other clauses that made my blood run cold. There was a full waiver of rights to any future earnings, bonuses, or windfalls. There was a section about his business, a tech startup he co-founded, which was listed as having negligible current value. I remembered all the years I supported him, working 2 jobs so he could pour every penny and every waking hour into his passion project. He'd always told me it was a long shot, that it was barely staying afloat. The settlement stated I would relinquish any and all claims to it. It was all designed for a quick, clean break. It was designed for someone too devastated by a cheating husband and a surprise baby to read the fine print. The next morning, I drove to the diner on autopilot. Carol was already there, huddled in a booth in the back, looking 10 years older than she had last week. She clutched my hands the moment I sat down. Her own were freezing cold. "He's been lying to you for months, Sarah. Not just about the affair," she started, her eyes darting around the near-empty diner. "His company, his startup. It wasn't struggling." I stared at her, uncomprehending. "What do you mean?" "They're being bought out," she said, the words tumbling out in a rush. "A huge tech giant. The deal closes in 2 weeks. His shares—" "Sarah, his shares will be worth millions. At least $10 million. The air was punched from my lungs. $10 million. All of it would be considered marital property, our property. But if I signed those papers, I would see none of it. The timing wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't just a man leaving his wife for another woman. This was a calculated financial execution. The affair, the baby, it was all a cruel, elaborate distraction. A weapon designed to shatter me so completely that I'd sign anything just to make the pain stop. So he invented this Chloe to scare me into signing away my future, I said, the cold, hard reality of it settling over me like a shroud. A wave of nausea hit me. He didn't just stop loving me, he actively despised me enough to orchestrate this. "The affair is real," Carol said grimly, her face etched with shame for her son. "He's been seeing her, and she is pregnant. He's not lying about that." A bitter, hollow laugh escaped my lips. "Well, thank God for that. For a second I thought he was a complete monster. He's just mostly a monster who's going to be a father." I felt a strange, detached pity for this mystery woman, Chloe. She was getting involved with a man capable of this level of cruelty. "That's the part you don't understand," Carol said, pulling her phone from her purse. Her hand was trembling as she swiped through her photos. "He didn't just choose some random woman, Sarah. He chose someone he knew would destroy you." She turned the phone towards me. On the screen was a photo taken at a recent baby shower. Mark stood in the center, one hand proudly placed on a swollen, pregnant belly, the other arm wrapped around the woman's shoulders. They were both beaming, the picture of happiness. But my focus wasn't on Mark. It was on the woman. Her face, framed by familiar blonde hair, was smiling up at him. A face I knew as well as my own. It was my younger sister, Emily. The diner blurred around me. The smell of frying bacon, the clatter of plates, the low murmur of conversation, it all faded into a roaring in my ears. Emily, my baby sister, the one I'd taught to ride a bike, the one I'd helped with her homework, the one who had cried on my shoulder when her first boyfriend broke her heart. And Chloe? It was her middle name, a name she'd always hated, a detail so perfectly designed to conceal the ultimate betrayal. He wasn't just leaving me, he was replacing me with my own blood. The fury that replaced my grief was unlike anything I had ever felt. It was a cold, clarifying rage that burned away the tears and the self-pity. Carol saw the shift in my eyes. "Don't sign anything," she whispered again, her hand squeezing mine. "Get a shark, Sarah, a real killer." Oh, I did. I found the most ruthless divorce attorney in the city, a woman named Ms. Albright who looked like she ate men like Mark for breakfast. I walked into her office, laid the divorce papers on her polished mahogany desk, and told her everything. When I got to the part about the $10 million buyout and my sister, she didn't even blink. She just steepled her fingers, and a slow, predatory smile spread across her face. "This won't be a divorce," she said, her voice like gravel. "This will be a corporate dismantling." For the next 10 days, I followed Miss Albright's instructions to the letter. I played the part of the heartbroken, shattered wife. I ignored Mark's increasingly frantic texts and calls, each one escalating in its feigned concern and thinly veiled impatience. "Sarah, just sign the papers so we can both move on." "My lawyer said you haven't responded. What's the holdup?" "This isn't fair to Chloe. She's stressed about the baby." Every message was another nail in his coffin. Miss Albright had me document them all. While he thought I was crying into my pillow, we were gathering ammunition. Miss Albright's team of forensic accountants descended on his startup's finances. They found emails between Mark and the acquiring company dated months back, well before our separation, proving he had full knowledge of the impending sale and its value. They found bank statements showing lavish gifts and rent payments for a downtown apartment in Chloe's name. The affair wasn't just a recent fling, it had been going on for over a year. The day before the buyout was scheduled to close, Ms. Albright made her move. We filed a motion to freeze all of Mark's assets, including his company shares, pending the divorce settlement. The motion, which included a detailed timeline of his affair with my sister and evidence of his financial deception, was delivered to Mark, his lawyer, and the CEO of the company buying him out. Pandemonium ensued. I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was Emily sobbing hysterically. "You're ruining everything," she shrieked. "Mark's deal might fall through. This money was for our baby, for our future. How could you be so selfish?" "Selfish?" I asked, my voice dangerously calm. "You're sleeping with my husband, carrying his child, and you're calling me selfish? I sent you money for your college textbooks last semester, Emily. Was that before or after you started sleeping with him?" The line went silent, filled only by her choked sobs before she hung up. The final meeting was a masterpiece of legal theater. It wasn't in a courtroom, but in a sterile conference room. Mark sat across from me, looking pale and gaunt. The arrogant man who had served me divorce papers on my birthday was gone, replaced by a cornered animal. My sister was not there. Ms. Albright laid out our terms. They were not a negotiation. They were a surrender. I wasn't asking for half of the $10 million. I was demanding 75%. "That's outrageous," Mark's lawyer blustered. "Is it?" Ms. Albright countered, sliding a file across the table. "This is a copy of our complaint for damages, which we will file tomorrow if we don't have an agreement today. It details conspiracy to commit fraud, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Oh, and we've also subpoenaed your your client's pregnant girlfriend's text messages. The acquiring company's board is particularly interested in the fraud allegations. Bad press can be so damaging to a new acquisition stock price. Don't you think?" Checkmate. Mark stared at me, his eyes pleading for the first time. He saw no mercy in mine. He signed. I never saw Mark again. The last I heard, the buyout went through, but the scandal tarnished his reputation. He and Emily moved to a different state, their multi-million-dollar payday reduced to a fraction of what they'd schemed for. I got a single pathetic text from my sister, a few months later, with a picture of her baby boy. I deleted it without responding. My relationship with my family is fractured, perhaps permanently, but the ones who mattered, my parents, my other siblings, eventually saw the truth. As for me, I used the money to start over, completely. I sold the house filled with bad memories and bought a beautiful loft downtown. I traveled. I went back to school to get the master's degree I'd put on hold to support his dream. I healed. Today is my 31st birthday. There's no fancy dinner planned, no expensive gifts. It's just me, a slice of store-bought cake, and a view of the city skyline from my new home. And as I look out at the sparkling lights, I don't feel bitterness or regret. I feel free. He thought he was leaving me with nothing. He had no idea he was giving me everything.